Paul Simon's. It's not his debut, right? It's his second solo album,
Yes.
right? Because he did one while he was in Simon and Garfunkel. Yep. So
Paul Simon's Songbook, I think, was his debut album.
Matt, run me the numbers, and I'm going to give you my hottest take.
Okay, so Paul Simon is number 245 in the 1970s on Best Ever Albums. It is number 26 in 1972, 1,110 of all time. And in Rolling Stone's list, it's 425, so a little on the higher end.
You should have called it Simon Schmeiman. Like
Simon Schmeiman. Yeah, that would have been a good one. Good call, Baby Driver.
All right, so it's kind of interesting that I get to start this one. So I came in expecting
love of Simon and Garfunkel.
I came in expecting to hate this out because I actually don't dislike Simon and Garfunkel, and if you look at my list, even the Simon and Garfunkel album that I kind of was harsh on, I still ranked it pretty high. So I think it might have come off a little bit stronger than I want. But
Bridge Over Troubled
Water, exactly. But I am not a fan historically of like Paul Simon's like work in the 80s in particular. Like You Can Call Me Al and like the world music,
Graceland. We're covering Graceland.
That stuff. I'm going to go in with an open mind, but I listened. There was a period of my life where I was played that by many people in my life to try to get me to, and I looked at it as stuff I did not like. It was, in fact, an example used by me often of stuff I didn't like. So I came to this and I said, I'm going to have an open mind. And boy, I was glad I did because I like this album. And the thing that shocked me most was I turn it on, and suddenly I hear a good ska song as the first track of the album. And I'm like, wait, what? A ska song at the beginning? Like a ska and reggae song, to the point where I'm like, all right, I gotta like listen to how this happened, because Paul Simon busting out like a straight up first gen, because there's, the three waves of ska, right? First wave, second wave. He basically wrote a first wave ska song that sounded like Desmond Decker and the Scotalites. And I'm like, whoa. And I look it up, and damn if he didn't go to Jamaica and record with Desmond Decker and the Aces. Huh. And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? And then the song Duncan I really liked. Paul Simon's always been able to write a song. I'll never take that away from him. And, I know Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard. That's a very famous song. Armistice Day is another song that really spoke to me. And, while it died down a little bit on the back end, especially the two-part hobo combination, which did not do much for me. I would say that of the albums that we've covered this go-around, it's one of my favorites that we've done in this set of 7. I really liked it, and it was a nice little surprise for me, and a nice reminder to not come in with an opinion before you listen to an album. Even if you get to what you think it's going to be, like what happened to me with Rod Stewart here, I think one of the cool things about this is I'm not going in with a set example, and then you can be surprised by listening to a ska song as the first song on a Paul Simon album in 1972, which was a really cool, well, for some people, I'm sure that sounds horrific, but like for me, it's a plus. So, yeah.
Have you been able to pinpoint why this is... you responded more to this than Simon and Garfunkel? Because he's obviously such a integral part of Simon and Garfunkel and wrote most of the songs, if not all of them, right?
I just liked the compositions, but one thing that this had a lot was really good bass lines. And I think I mentioned, was it Bookends? There was one of the Simon and Garfunkel albums, I believe it was Bookends, that I also noticed the bass lines. And for me, that's something that also stands out on good Bob Dylan albums, is when the bass lines are stronger, I tend to like the Bob Dylan albums that I can hear the bass lines, right? And I just felt like the musical accompaniments spoke to me more on this album. Whether, like I said, that first track that had the, by the way, when I said earlier, Desmond Decker and the Aces, he didn't record with them. He loved them. That was the inspiration. But he actually recorded with... Well, he recorded with Toots and the Maytals, another band that is in that that neck of the woods, and we're going to cover them actually. So let me do a cleaning the stacks right there. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just that I think it's just I like the songs, I like the music. One thing I always appreciate so far about Paul Simon is like none of his albums overstay their welcome. Like it never is like one of those things we've talked about where the songs are too long. Like he tells his piece he's usually at the right length for what he's saying, and he's out of there, which is something that I've really come to appreciate. This is, the 5th album that we've done with him as a piece of it. So yeah, that's my initial takes. I'll be happy to jump in as we go along, but yeah, this one's a thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I really like this one also. I think what speaks to me, I mean, I knew some of these songs like Mother and Child Reunion and Me and Julio, and maybe even Peace Like a River. But what I think Paul Simon is really good at is and you can hear this, right from the opening track with the ska reggae beat or background, is that he pulls from all these different things, right? And maybe he does that too much later on in his career and goes over to Africa and appropriates that, or uses it to a detriment. But here he's taking these little pieces of things and really incorporating them into his strong songwriting, and I think this album also has more of an edge than Simon and Garfunkel did.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's not afraid to go places. I mean, he's playing the blues. If that's him playing the guitar, it's pretty good blues, right? Playing just on an acoustic guitar. And even like something like Armistice Day, I really like the guitar on that song. That kind of reminded me of like something Jack White would play, or probably has played at some point, for all I know. And so I guess with not having the harmonies to not hamstring him, but not using that as the focal point, he's able to maybe branch out a bit more and do some different things. I mean, I also wonder every time I hear Me and Julio, like how many times it took him to whistle that correctly, or if that's him whistling, or so. But even incorporating whistling like that, and they're just so unique. They're just such unique songs that I really like the direction on this album.
Yeah, I before I kick it to Matt, I think one thing too is, especially in comparison to Bridge Over Troubled Water, which was just big and expansive and just, I don't know, I just never, there was nothing intimate about it. And I think that was kind of the knock I had. I said it was kind of like clinical and cold. This is not that. This is much more intimate. It's more vulnerable, I'd say. He writes a lot about death on this album, in terms of the lyrics, including the first track, which you wouldn't get it from. But it just that spoke to me too, Josh. Like you said, it's Duncan's a really interesting song lyrically too.
And that's got some like folk elements, like British folk, in a way, with the flute or whatever it is.
Well, I wasn't quite. It seemed like it was about a fisherman, but I wasn't quite sure if the fisherman was Duncan or if it was like the son of the fisherman. Like, I'll have to do a little bit there, but it even if I didn't totally get it, it drew me in. So
I think he's got some clever songwriting too, with or humor in his songwriting, with something like Paranoia Blues. Thinking he's got some really funny lines in there about being at the airport and giving like 5 for 10, like going to jail and things like that. That was funny.
Matt, thoughts?
My first question is, what's the difference between reggae and ska?
Gosh, horns is a big one right off the bat. First gen reggae and ska, there isn't a lot of difference, because they come from the same neck of the woods. So it's just tempo and horns. When you get into second ska, when we're talking, the specials and the selector and stuff like that, the tempo goes much quicker. There's more instrumentation, like there's keyboards and stuff. And then when we get to the third wave of ska, there's more guitar, and it's more structured in traditional pop music.
Okay.
I think
that's a very quick answer to that. I can expand on that when we get to the ska albums in the late 70s, I'll give you ska 101. So
I think ska with the up tempo is more like dance focused too, versus like reggae, which is kind of a bit more laid back, in my opinion.
Because I was thinking reggae when I heard Mother and Child, and I did know that song, but I didn't. Actually, I think I knew that song from a Chipmunks movie or something. I think they did that when Alvin, Simon, and Theodore found their mom.
Matt's weird references.
I was just about to say. Massive
So,
obscure reference
so
corner.
on the basic thing right here, I just pulled it up as we're going. The biggest difference between ska and reggae is subtle and nuanced, and it involves tempo and rhythm. There you go.
Okay.
So kind of what we talked about.
Yeah, and
before.
I always thought it was faster, but I was thinking like this to me it sounded reggae. But anyway, so that's so
Well,
I didn't know
you're
that song,
probably right, too.
and it was okay. I'm not a big fan of this album.
What?
Yeah,
And you
Whoa.
like Simon and Garfunkel
Yeah.
a lot.
Whoa.
yeah, I do.
Shifted.
I did. Yeah, I just there was some good stuff on here. I did like Mother and Child Reunion. I liked Duncan as well. I think that was probably my favorite song on here that I didn't know. Because I also do like Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard, which actually I was thinking, is that Electric Jug? I thought I heard jugging going on in that.
I thought the same thing, Matt. I was
Interesting.
wondering if it was the old electric jug or something in that neck of the woods.
I'm
yeah,
gonna
and
look
you
it
say,
up.
you say whistling, and I'm like, I don't know if it doesn't sound like somebody's whistling. I mean, there might have been a different part where he's whistling, but it sounded like juggish. And the only reason I knew that is I heard that was because of the headphones.
Juggish.
It was very it's very juggish.
Juggish boned.
Yeah. So yeah, and again, maybe I need to
He is
listen
whistling.
to him. He is whistling. Okay,
Yep.
it's like a deep whistle. I don't know, or maybe there's an effect of some sort. But anyway, I just didn't find it terribly interesting. I didn't musically, he's got some good guitar skills. I'll say that, but I didn't really find many hooks. It didn't really seem to have a strong structure to me. It seemed like he was doing cool guitar tricks, which is fine, but it was a little bit sparse for me, and it was a little bit lacking in the hook/melody area. And even if there's great lyrics at the end of the day, if I'm not really feeling it musically, then I'm not going to be as into it. So I think that there were cool parts in here, like there was a part in like run that body down where it kind of picks up it picks up pace after a couple of minutes, which I was like, oh, that was cool, but that was just a little part of it, and there were several moments that sprinkled with that I found throughout this album that he did something kind of cool, and then he kind of took it away and then went back to it was like an offshoot of the song, and I wish that he did maybe more of some of that stuff more, maybe that was more prominent within the song.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's pretty clear that when Simon and Garfunkel was happening, that Simon was writing certain songs for Garfunkel, and I feel like this album was when he didn't have to do that anymore.
Yes.
I wonder if, a lot of the songs I always found a lot of the songs with Garfunkel sounded really good, and because Garfunkel's voice is so good, but they were also really expansive, and they were very sentimental. And Matt, those are things I know, speak to you. And I, on the other hand, don't connect with that as much. And, not having Garfunkel around, as I think back on it now, was probably a net plus for me on this. And I wonder if that's the difference. Because it's almost like now that after the shock of, me thinking that you like, Paul Simon pretty much universally, and, knowing that's not it, it does in some ways make sense that this is, the version that would connect with John and not as much with Matt, in the same way that, Bridge Over Troubled Water, really is peak for what you look for and a little bit less what I look for, if that makes sense.
I actually kind of felt like, man, it'd be nice to have Garfunkel back in the,
I never felt that way. I felt like, ooh, nice dead weight. I see what Paul Simon was thinking. Yeah. Not dead weight.
on.
Not dead weight. Dead weight's unfair. But I see
You always
why
talked
he's
about how great his voice was. You always
it
said his
is, but
voice is great.
the songs were always cheesy, and I can see why he's like, I don't have to write for this guy anymore. Awesome. Now I can write.
Yeah, but again, I go back to the.
But you don't like the lyrics, yeah. So, or
but I am,
listen
and
to the
I am,
lyrics, yeah.
and I am more sentimental, and that's very true. But it's also not because of the lyrics. It's more of it's the music. It's the end of the day. 9.9 times out of 10, I'm gonna be like, what's the music doing for me? And on one listen of this record, right?
Yeah.
I was very much welcoming Me and Julio. I didn't know that was coming when that came on. I was like, okay, something upbeat and something I could like.
And that was my least favorite song on the album, because I'm like, oh, that's the old cheesy Paul Simon.
And it's overplayed, and but I think that's a cool guitar part. And that's another thing, John, that also reminded me too of I knew people in college that would try to play that, here's the cool guitar part. Yeah, exactly. So So yeah, it's actually, and I did like Hobo's Blues. That was kind of like the hoedown. I was like, this feels like a song that I would be listening to in Frontierland in Disney World, like with the country bears and stuff.
You literally like all the stuff I didn't like and don't like any of the stuff
I know.
that I like.
As you were talking, I'm like, yeah, I disagree with that. That's not how I feel.
Yep.
I'm surprised that you guys liked it so much. I thought we were all going to be panning this. I see what you're saying. I think your points make sense. But
you didn't think that Josh and I, who like reggae and ska, would immediately be like,
one
ooh,
song.
number one's okay.
I actually, you know what I thought, John? I knew you hated his quote unquote world music, and I thought that would have been falling into. Here's John's going to be like,
you wouldn't have liked this album.
Fair point. But I didn't feel he was appropriating there. It felt authentic to me, which hey, you can do music if you do it well, and he did it well there.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are like my own Simon and Garfunkel. You're two sides of the same coin. Sometimes.
Well, on some things, and then we're uniform on others.
Paul Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah. Well, the biggest difference is at the end of the day, and we've talked about this. Matt likes a bit, like you always say, right? You like a song that builds up to a chorus that you can hold on to. The lyrics are not as big a deal. It's the music, you know what I mean? You like stuff that builds to a crescendo. I tend to be a little bit more lyrically oriented. I like stuff that can dovetail off, like can even be off. I don't need it to build necessarily. It can be, you know what I'm saying? So it makes sense in some ways because we don't always look for the same structure. Yeah.
The build is nice, and that's like icing on the cake because I really like that if the song's able to do that. Mm-hmm. But the main thing, what I need is many times is the melody, right? Or it's the hook. And even if
Josh is the hook. Josh is the hook guy. I think more than anybody, he mentions that he needs hooks. I remember the Birds, right? You're like, there just aren't enough hooks. Yeah,
I like the hooks.
But if that's the thing too, because there's some stuff that I like that's not like that doesn't have the hooks, but it's got it's the overall sound. Maybe that's it. Because if you think of someone like Dylan, who some songs he doesn't really I wouldn't say Dylan has hooks, but Dylan just his overall sound and how he presents the entire thing with his voice, with how he like the fluctuation of his vocals. The guitar, the melody, the cool stuff he's doing with it, it just all hits,
Well, and one of the fascinating things is going to be there's going to be bands we cover in the mid 70s that go and artists, I should say, that we cover that go out of their way to destroy traditional melody. So I can only imagine, Matt, like when we do like Brian Eno and like Kraftwerk and stuff, it's going to be very interesting because those people were like very much, I want to do something different than traditional melody and stuff. So the question I think I might have for you, Matt, is do you think you're going to be able to do that, or is it going to be too far of a bridge to cross?
That's a good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know Brian Eno or Kraftwerk, and I terribly well at all. There's some stuff that
Devo
I like
to some degree is going to do that too. You know what I mean? There's different
some stuff
groups
that I like that's like more avant-garde. So I guess I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly how to. I don't think I can say every song needs to have this, right? I don't think I could go. Can't go that far because that's not every song that I love has a great melody or a great hook, right? But there needs to be something for me to grasp onto, and sometimes that's a little bit of edge with a little cool, unique. I wasn't expecting that. I do like unexpected things, and edgier things. But for this record that we're talking about now, it was just there. It was a little sparse. It was a little. Yeah, it was a little boring for me, and it was just one listen, So, but it's also not something like I like acoustic, folkier kind of music. This has got poppier elements to it. I would probably like to go other places for that than with this album. So that's just kind of where I am.
That's a fair take. Yep. We were talking about not having enough derision, right? Correct word there in terms of our take, and we're starting to get it a little bit now. So it's good to see. Well.